So, before we conclude this chapter 15 of the integral yoga, seeing the Lord everywhere, from the talks on the Gita by Sri Vinobha Bhave, we have the opportunity of understanding more about bhakti, devotion, according to different scriptures. Thereby, we understand the Gita better. Sage Narada is supposed to be a devotee, and he gave the Bhakti the sutras to have, giving clarity about what bhakti is, what devotion is. And we talked about these Narada Sutras extensively in our classes. Mainly, Sage Narada defines bhakti as intense love for divinity. He calls it Parama Prema Rupa. That is, he describes it as the nectar of love. Devotion is the nectar of love. He calls it Amrita Swarupa. And this devotion, he says, is not an ordinary love, because such devotion is untainted by any self-interest or egoism, and it does not seek worldly rewards. This is where we all struggle. We all have love, but it is tainted with our own interest. Our ego gets involved, and we are looking for the worldly rewards of the Lord looking at us, talking to us, giving us special attention. All that falls under that ordinary love. It isn't. So bhakti is not an ordinary love. It is not tainted with all these things. And devotion, which is bhakti, it's an experience of that immortal bliss. And when you have experienced that, there is no lack in you. There is a complete satisfaction. That state does not have jealousy, material desires. According to Sage Narada, bhakti is supposed to be the highest sentiment, and it is superior, according to him, more than karma, more than jnana, more than dhyana, more than action, more than knowledge, more than meditation and discipline. Sage Narada considers bhakti, devotion, as the supreme. And according to him, what are the signs of this supreme love, which is known as parabhakti? In that state of being, all our thoughts, words, deeds, or everything surrender to the divinity. And another state that he says that people experience is feeling intensely miserable at the slightest forgetfulness of the divine. There is a song by Bhimsen Joshi. Beet gaye din bhajan binare. The day has passed. Lord, I didn't have a minute to worship you. He was already worshipping, but he feels he didn't worship. That is the state of the devotion. And it is a state where the devotee is completely dedicated and has completely at his feet. He has no other choice. And to cultivate such kind of bhakti, the methods he gives is, of course, remembrance, constant remembrance, hearing the stories and the glories of the divine, being in the company of the divine beings, service to those saints, and association with pure devotees. And this Lalaji said, keep the company with people whose hearts are brimming with love for divine. Sage Narada also says, give up your attachment to the sensual objects. And how did masters teach us? We don't have to give up anything. We refine our senses. With the dhyana, when the senses are refined and they come to their original state of balance, there is a natural, not a detachment, but a non attachment. You can still wear everything beautiful, but you may not be attached to it because senses are in balance. When those senses are in balance, that real devotion naturally happens. When senses are distorted and in a state of imbalance, then you are associating with the lower level of consciousness of lust and ordinary love. But when senses are in balance, that ordinary love becomes bhakti. And he also, Sage Narada also says that you have to redirect our emotions towards divinity. The desires we have, the anger. That is why if we look at all our sages of the past, Ramadas, who was a devotee of Lord Rama, he was so mad at the Lord because he built a temple for the Lord and he utilized the money that was in his office and he was put in jail. And then, he's upset with the Lord. Whose money you think you are where I made all these things for you and you are happy, but here I am suffering in the jail. So even then even his anger was in remembrance of God. So this is where they are guiding us with examples of the sages, where we are redirecting our emotions like desire and anger towards the ultimate. So what is the goal? The goal is to arrive at that parabhakti, higher devotion, and which is a state of, our masters call it, unconditional love and complete surrender that leads to the higher consciousness. So what is this higher consciousness that Sage Narada talks? He says liberation, bliss. But for us, with that unconditional love and complete surrender, we are transcending the heart region. We are transcending, when that complete surrender happens at the point 9, we are transcending the mind region. When unconditional love happens and you enter into the central region where point 11 and 12, it's the region of God. That is the state of unconditional love. So Narada Bhakti Sutras teaches us to practice divine love, and he advocates a heart-centered path, just like heartfulness. And I was studying Vashishta Gita, Yoga Vashishta Gita. I was trying to get some thoughts from him. And even there, the highest worship is about self-realization. And in Yoga Vasishta, devotion is merged with knowledge. In Yoga Vasishta is a conversation between Lord Rama and Sage Vashishta. It teaches that realization of this consciousness as one's own self. And that is the highest. Realizing the self as the Brahman is the best worship. That was the essence. So the practices were to transcend each region, just like how we are doing in the heartfulness method. Expanding the consciousness, transcending the lower tendencies, transcendence to that highest self. That is worship. So, according to Yoga Vashishta also, devotion is not worshipping the external form, but a process that quietly merges the self with that ultimate self, where the devotee loses the idea of separation, which Daji always talks about, the water drop falling into the ocean, becoming the ocean. So, Yoga Vashishta talks about mergence. Mergence is what creates that highest devotion. And in Yoga Vashishta, it is described that the Supreme Being is the ultimate, and you integrate meditation, integrate devotion, and you have faith. And with this liberation, you mature in your consciousness. This consciousness maturing happens when we are able to do the sadhana. So, Yoga Vashishta is more of Sahaj Marg, where with self effort, making ourselves better, making ourselves righteous, making ourselves truthful, this love for divinity culminates into devotion. So, this is how the great elders are talking about bhakti. And coming back to the integral yoga, seeing the Lord everywhere by Vinobha Bhave, page 319, we will continue on what he talks about. Jnanadeva has given in his Amrutanubhava an illustration that is dear to Maharashtra. Maharashtra is a state. The temple, the image, and the devotee are all carved out of a single rock. Why cannot devotion be like that? So the worshipper, the worship, and the act of worshipping. God, the seeker, and the act of worshipping, it is all carved as one. The temple, the image of the Lord, and that of the devotee, and the flowers for worship are all carved in the same rock. A single rock takes different forms. So that is how they are signifying that this concept of mergence, this concept of we don't exist, that the ultimate is just witnessing everything, and we are a part of that. Why should not the same thing happen in the realm of devotion? Why cannot there be unity between the devotee and the divine, even when the relationship of master and servant remains? So, even in that state of utmost humbleness, in mergence also there is utmost humbleness. See, that is why if we observe Riviyadaji training us to respect elders, it is not that the elders need respect. You are developing this concept of respecting the higher, because in the modern days that is very lacking. If you look at in America, it's completely lacking. The idea of respect for elders or teachers. Why is it needed? Because now you develop an attitude of humility, and to enter the higher regions, there is utmost humility. Without that, you cannot enter. That is how Indian temples are signified, where they go to the inner sanctimonium of the inner temple, which is known as Garbhagudi. It is so small that you have to bow down and go into it. So, unless we develop this attitude now itself by respecting elders, because even if you look at the hierarchy, why is the word hierarchy there? If everybody was equal, all the masters were equal, why the word hierarchy? Because even in an iota of speck, somebody is in that higher state where Babuji Maharaj, in spite of divinity, God being merged in him and he being expanded in the entire universe, he bows down to Lalaji, Lord Krishna. Are they not equal in the condition? They are. But yet that reverence that you are nothing, even in that ultimate state exists. And if we don't practice it now, we fail in some level. So even if that relationship of master and servant remains, yet there can be unity. Why cannot the creation, the means of worship, verily become the self even though they are distinct? All the three Purushas are after all one. What are the three Purushas? Jnana, knowledge, karma, action, and bhakti, devotion, should combine to form the spring of life. And this is the perfect Purushottama Yoga. And what is Purushottama Yoga? That is seeing the Lord everywhere. The sport of loving devotion should then go on even though the servant, the master, and the means of service are one and the same. A true devotee is one who has fully assimilated this Purushottama Yoga. He who knows me, the Purushottam, knows all, and he worships me in all the forms with all his being. This is what Lord Krishna said. Such a man is a jnani and is a perfect bhakta. One who has attained knowledge is invariably full of love. Knowing the Lord and loving Him are not two different things. That statement is very interesting because in our Lalaji Maharaj's books, in the autobiography, he gives a method where when you begin the meditation, this is a special meditation, he says, that you meditate with the idea that he sees everything, he knows everything, he listens to everyone. My body is dying, but my soul is crossing all the consciousness, seven consciousness, and it is in front of him, the ultimate. And I know him whom I am longing for. That statement, I know him whom I am longing for. Here, knowing the Lord and loving him are not two different things. So at that state, you are sitting with utmost love. I know him whom I am longing for is a state of being of parabhakti, ultimate love. For me, reading this book is the most precious thing. Because last week, if we remember when we talked about, in Lord Krishna's statement, in one of the translations, he said that when impurities and complexities leave you, true bhakti descends in the being. What is it that we are doing in our day-to-day cleaning? What is our cleaning process of the Sahaj Marg method? All the impurities and complexities, darkness and light darkness is all leaving from the back as smoke and vapor. So we are removing impurities and complexities. So how subtly Babaji Maharaj created as a method where naturally this state of being is happening. It is in Lalaji Maharaj's autobiography, volume 4. So knowing the Lord and loving Him are not two different things. If we know that something is bitter, we do not develop any love for it. Exceptions apart, bitter taste arouses dislike. But sugar immediately arouses liking. Likewise, knowing the Lord and loving Him are one and the same thing. But should one compare the Lord with so ordinary thing as sugar? Knowing and loving Him being one and the same thing, there is no point in debating over the place of devotion in non-duality. As Jnanadeva says, know the Lord, that itself is devotion as well as knowledge. Devotion and knowledge are two names for the same thing. When supreme bhakti, parabhakti, is infused into life, the karma that follows is not different from bhakti and jnana. Karma, bhakti, and jnana together make a single beautiful form, and wonderful service, saturated with love and knowledge, springs from it naturally. If I love my mother, my love should express itself in my actions. True love always toils for the loved ones. It expresses itself in service. Service is the outer visible form of love. Love adorns itself with innumerable acts of service. Where there is love, knowledge inevitably follows it. So that is why service is the most important thing. As you serve, you start to love that thing that you are serving. That is why that relationship of the servant and the master. When you are serving, you fall in love with the master. And that love itself is knowledge. Then knowledge descends from within you. So service is the key. Serving with a feeling that it's him. You submit the karmapala to his feet. Where there is love, knowledge inevitably follows. When I am to serve somebody, I must know what kind of service would please him. Otherwise, the service would prove to be disservice. It's like us trying to cook so many things for master, not knowing what he likes. We all did that, right? So you must know first. Love must therefore have knowledge of those whom it serves. Knowledge is needed to spread the grandeur of love through actions. But love has to be there primarily. Without it, knowledge would be of little use. An action done out of love is quite different from an ordinary action. When the son comes home tired from the field, the mother looks at him with affection and concerns and speaks a few comforting words. My child, you really are tired, aren't you? These few words have tremendous effect. Pour knowledge and devotion into all the actions in life, and that is what Purushottama Yoga means. Means seeing the Lord everywhere. The essence of all the Vedas is in the palm of my hands. That is why Daji gave us those, hand, heart, head. You know. This is the essence of all the Vedas. The Vedas are many, but Purushottama Yoga is their simple and sweet essence. Where are these Vedas? Their ways are strange indeed. The very first verse of this chapter refers to the tree having the Vedas in its leaves. The Vedas are the spiritual wisdom, are not after all hidden in the book. They are there in the whole universe for everybody to see. So the knowledge is not in the book, it is in the universe, it is in you experiencing the universe. Shakespeare has spoken of the books in the running brooks, sermons in stones. The Veda is not made up of words, it is not in some book, but it is in the creation around us. Devote yourself to service and it will be revealed to you. That is why they gave this statement which Daji always quotes. Prabhate Karadarshanam. One should behold one's palms in the morning. The Veda is there in those palms. They ask you to serve. See whether your hands have toiled yesterday, whether they are ready to toil today, whether your palms carry marks of your labor. So Prabhate Karadarshanam implies that when your hands work tirelessly, that which has been ordained for you by providence will become clear. You will know what you are destined to and are supposed to do. What is the point in asking where is the Veda? The Veda is not somewhere else. All of us have received it when we are born. We are the living embodiment of the Veda. We are the consummation of a long tradition. We are the fruit of the tree that has sprouted from the Veda seed. Within this fruit, these seeds are innumerable Vedas. The Vedas have grown many times within us. In short, the essence of the Vedas is in our hands. It is for us to realize it. It means that life has to be built on the foundation of service, love, and knowledge. Karma, bhakti, and jnana. We can interpret the Vedas in the way we like. The saints who were embodiments of service claim Veda Cheto Ardha Amha Thava. I don't know that. We alone know the meaning of the Vedas. That is in Sanskrit. Forgive me for that. The saints who were embodiments of service claim we all know the meaning of the Vedas. The Lord is saying here, the Vedas know me only. I am the Purushottam, the essence of all Vedas. So seeing Him in everything, serving Him in everyone is the essence of the Vedas. Would it not be wonderful if we could assimilate this Purushottama Yoga in our lives? The Gita is suggesting here that the Vedas express themselves in every action of the person who assimilates Purushottama Yoga. This chapter contains the essence of the Gita. The Gita's teaching is fully revealed here. Everybody should strive to follow this ceaselessly. What else can one say? So we completed chapter 15. We will begin chapter 16 next week, where they talk about the conflict between the divine tendencies and the demonic tendencies, as they call it. So let us all now meditate.